Hello and welcome back to the Deep End. It is Sunday, February 1st, 2026. And if you've been anywhere near, I don't know, a screen, a gym, or just basically breathing air for the past few months, you know exactly where we're going today. We are talking about the sweat, the adrenaline, and the absolute sprawling empire that is the physical 100 universe.
It really has stopped being just a TV show at this point. It's a whole cultural ecosystem.
A phenomenon is putting it lightly. I mean, just think back to 2023. It started as this kind of unicorn reality show out of South Korea, pitched as the wholesome alternative to Squid Game. You know, just 100 people hanging from bars, fighting for a medicine ball, all just trying to prove they had the, quote, perfect physique.
And that was it. The concept was so simple and so compelling.
It was. But fast forward to today, February 2026, and we're not talking about a season 3 or 4. We are looking at a full-blown global franchise. We have spin-offs, we have these huge international editions, and we've just wrapped up the absolute titan that was physical, Asia.
Which is exactly why we need to stop and, take stock of where we are. Because on the surface, this is it's great entertainment. It's like gladiator sports for the TikTok age.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we start to dig into the stack of sources we've got for today, and we have a lot, everything from entertainment news and Collider and the Food and Critic to cultural analysis from Ihua Voice and even some pretty dense academic research from Durji Park, we start to see that this expansion, it comes with a massive footprint.
Right, and that's our mission for today. We want to unpack all of it. We're going to talk about that massive scale-up we just saw with Physical Asia. We're going to look at the global rollout that's hitting the U.S. and Europe as we speak. But we're also going to get into the, the gritty stuff, the controversies that the glossy editing tries to hide, the shifting gender dynamics, and maybe the most important part, the psychological toll this obsession with the perfect body is taking on all of us, on the viewers.
That psychological piece it's absolutely crucial. We're going to spend a good amount of time later really digging into muscle dysmorphia, or what a lot of people call bigorexia, and how these survivor-style TV shows are, in effect, a really efficient distribution system for it.
Okay, so chalk up. Let's dive in. Let's start with where we are right now.
Yeah.
Late 2025 gave us Physical Asia. And this wasn't just individual athletes anymore. This was nation versus nation.
It was a massive escalation. In every sense of the word. The original show was about finding that one singular perfect physique out of 100 individuals, physical. Asia took that idea and just layered this thick coat of nationalism right on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
We had 8 countries clashing. It was Korea, Japan, Thailand, Mongolia, Turkey, Indonesia, Australia, and the Philippines.
And the casting. I was reading the announcements from the Food and Critic when they were coming out, and my jaw just kept dropping. This wasn't, local gym trainers or the hot guy from some dating show.
No. They went for the throat with the casting on this one. These were legitimate, world-renowned legends.
We're talking Manny Pacquiao representing the Philippines.
The only 8-division world champion in the history of boxing. It's insane that they got him.
And then Australia just casually brings in Robert the Reaper Pecker,
former UFC middleweight champion, one of the toughest guys on the planet.
And of course, Korea didn't hold back. They had to defend their home turf.
Of course not. They brought back Amadi, the winner from season 2, which was a great move, but then they added Stun Gun, Kim Dong-hyun, who's a UFC trailblazer in his own right, and Yoon Sung-bin, the Iron Man.
The Olympic gold medalist in skeleton? That guy's a physical specimen.
He's practically a superhero. It was basically an Avengers-level collection of athletic talent.
Okay, but I want to pause on Manny Pacquiao for a second, because this is where that whole perfect physique debate gets really technical and I think really interesting. Pacquiao is a god in the ring, a living legend, but he didn't win Physical Asia. He didn't even get close.
He didn't. And it really comes down to the physics of the show versus the physics of boxing. Pacquiao was built for explosive speed, for incredible cardiovascular endurance over 12 hard rounds. He's a striker. His muscle fibers, his entire system is designed to snap out and retract in an instant.
Right, whereas Physical 100 asks you to do things like move a 2-ton ship.
Exactly. The show heavily favors static strength and just raw mass. In physics terms, it's simple. Mass moves mass. Pacquiao, for all his greatness, is fundamentally a lightweight. So when you ask him to push a boulder that weighs 100 kilograms, he is at a profound mechanical disadvantage compared to someone like Robert Whittaker, who walks around at 200-plus pounds and literally grapples for a living. His job is moving other heavy men.
So the perfect physique In the context of the Pacific show, it actually leans toward the heavier grappling-based athlete.
Historically, yes. Overwhelmingly, if you look at the winners and the finalists from all the seasons, they almost always have a background in moving heavy external loads. We're talking CrossFitters, wrestlers, skeleton racers who have to push that heavy sled. Pure strikers, like boxers or Muay Thai fighters, they often struggle because their sport is about avoiding weight, not moving it.
That makes a ton of sense when you put it that way. And speaking of grappling, the format of physical, Asia was all squad-based, six-person squads, and they blended the elite athleticism with cultural heritage, which I thought was a genius move.
It was. It wasn't just about who can lift the heaviest rock anymore. They brought in Korean Syrian wrestling, Turkish oil wrestling, Muay Thai. It was a clash of styles.
Okay, the inclusion of Turkish oil wrestling Yelluguresh, that was a stroke of genius. But it also looked like a complete nightmare for everyone else. Can you break that down for us? What makes that specific discipline so difficult to deal with?
So in traditional Turkish wrestling, the competitors wear these special leather pants called a kispit, and then they douse themselves and each other in olive oil. Olive oil.
Gallons of it. And what the oil does is it removes all friction. You can't just grab an arm or a leg. It just slips right out of your hand. The only way to get any kind of leverage is to reach inside the leather pants or to use these incredibly specific, painful clamping techniques with your hands.
But they weren't actually oiled up in physical Asia,
Yeah.
right? I didn't see that.
No oil. But the Turkish captain, Recep Kara, he's a champion in that sport. He still has that foundational, bone-crushing grip strength that comes from years of that training. But it was fascinating to see how when you strip him of his specific advantage, the oil and the pants, he had to adapt his style to standard grappling. And on the flip side, watching the Korean Syrian wrestlers have to deal with the Thai strikers was a master class in distance management.
Right, because Syrian is belt wrestling. You start locked in.
Yes, the fight begins in close quarters. Muay Thai starts at a distance, so the entire game became, can the wrestler close that gap before the striker, takes his head off with a kick? It's a classic MMA question, but played out on this huge reality TV stage. So let's talk about the finale. We just saw this happen. Team Korea versus Team Mongolia.
It was a nail-biter, a pulse-pounding finale. And frankly, it makes perfect sense that those two teams made it. If you look at the history of combat sports, Mongolia has a deep, deep ancient tradition in wrestling, specifically buk.
Bare strength, I've heard people call it that.
And it's accurate. Their functional density is just different. These guys aren't bodybuilders sculpted for aesthetics in a mirror. They are built for leverage and for being absolutely immovable. Seeing Team Mongolia, who I think were the dark horses to a lot of casual viewers, just bully some of the prettier, more sculpted teams, it was a reality check on what real strength actually looks like.
It was so close, but in the end, Team Korea took it home.
They did. They won the $1 billion prize.
Which is, what, roughly 700,000 USD?
About that, yeah.
That is a life-changing amount of money, even for some of these professional athletes.
Absolutely. And for Netflix, it validates the whole franchise model. It proved that you can take this format, apply a layer of national pride, and get viewership that can rival major international sporting events.
And Netflix clearly sees the dollar signs. Because physical,
Yeah.
Asia. It's just the beginning. We are looking at a future that is extremely localized.
That's right. Our sources are indicating that casting is already underway for Physical 100 USA.
Imagine that, the search for the fittest person in America. The egos alone.
Oh, the egos will be massive. And here's a little detail that tells you everything you need to know about the direction they're probably going. It's being produced by Smith & Co.
The people who do American Ninja Warrior.
The very same.
Okay, that gives me pause. Because Physical 100 has a very specific aesthetic. It's dark, it's industrial, it's quiet. American Ninja Warrior, loud. It's neon lights and commentators screaming over everything.
And that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? The Korean production had this sort of dungeon chic vibe. It treated the competition with a somber, almost philosophical gravity. American Ninja Warrior treats it like a family-friendly spectacle. So if the U.S. version brings in the pyrotechnics, the emotional backstory packages about someone's dying cat, and the flashy lights, does it lose the soul of the show?
It risks becoming American Gladiators.
Hmm.
which, was fun for what it was, but it wasn't this.
Exactly. And the casting will be totally different. In Korea, you had this deep respect for hierarchy and an underground feel that meant you had active duty UDT soldiers competing next to farmers and car dealers.
Hmm.
In the U.S., I suspect we're going to see a very heavy tactical athlete presence.
Navy SEALs, Green Berets, that kind of thing.
The whole 9 yards. U.S. fitness culture is so heavily coded through the military. Freedom and firepower.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see if that honor aspect survives the trip across the Atlantic. Are they going to bow to each other after a match?
Okay.
Or are they just going to trash talk?
If it's American reality TV, my money's on the trash talk. I didn't come here to make friends is practically a required line on the waiver.
I think you're right. But it's not just the U.S., right? Europe is next on the list. Physical.
Yeah.
100.
Yes.
Italy is confirmed.
Yes, it is. And they've cast a really wide net there. Contestants range from age 22 all the way up to 60. They've got a famous rugby player, Mirko Bergamasco, and a champion diver, Tanya Cagnato. It's a real mix. And there's already talk of a broader physical Europe in the works after that.
It really is becoming the Avengers of fitness.
Well, the producer, Jang Hogi, has explicitly said that's the goal. He's teased a physical world as the ultimate end game. He's also mentioned that he's very interested in doing physical. Brazil and physical. Africa specifically.
Oh, wow.
Because those regions are such massive sporting powerhouses.
Physical. Brazil. Just the jiu-jitsu talent alone would be absolutely terrifying for everyone else.
And can you imagine physical Africa if you tap into the wrestling traditions of Senegal or the endurance genetics of East Africa?
Yeah.
You're introducing entire physiologies that we haven't really seen tested in this specific format yet.
It honestly sounds like the Olympics, but with way more suffering.
And way less regulation, which brings us to that unicorn aspect.
Yeah, let's pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Because when this show first dropped, the narrative was so pure. It was all, oh, look, it's Squid Game without the death. It's wholesome. They cheer for each other.
The wholesome facade. It was a brilliant marketing hook. But if we look at the reporting from Collider and some other investigative sources, that facade, it's not just crumbling.
It's being smashed with a sledgehammer. Let's talk about the real toll this show takes on the contestants. Because on TV, we see them sweating. Maybe they're panting a bit. But the reality behind the scenes is much, much more brutal.
It is. Elaine Wong, a contestant from one of the earlier seasons, gave this testimony that really pulls the curtain back. She said that behind the scenes, an ambulance was arriving every 20 to 30 minutes.
Every 20 to 30 minutes. That's not a game show. That's a war zone.
It effectively was. We saw some of it on screen. There were fractured ribs. We saw an elbow to the face during one of the death matches. But some of the worst injuries, they didn't even make it to air.
Like what?
There was a UDT instructor, a guy named Kim Kyung-baek. He won the hanging challenge, that iconic first challenge where they all hang from the rafters for as long as they can.
The one that looks absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
Where they're just hanging there for like 15, 20 minutes.
He won it, an incredible feat of endurance. But the cost.
Yeah.
The cost was that his arms were paralyzed for 2 months after the show.
2 months.
Temporary paralysis. It was due to severe nerve compression from hanging for so long. He couldn't lift his arms. He said he couldn't even feed himself properly for weeks.
And see, that's where the Netflix gloss is so dangerous. We see the victory. We see the slow motion shot of him being the last one hanging, the glory. We don't see the 2 months of painful rehab.
And it raises a really serious question about the duty of care on these productions. The Korean film industry, it has a history of somewhat lax safety standards, but this is a global Netflix production. They're funding this, pushing human beings to the point of nerve damage for a cool shot. That seems like a very high price to pay for entertainment.
It feels like they were pushing the absolute limits of human endurance without really considering the recovery process. And it wasn't just physical safety, was it? It was the fairness of the game itself. We have to talk about the season 1 finale.
The rope pulling match.
This is the stuff of conspiracy theories, but the reporting on it seems to be pretty solid. It was Jung Ha-min versus Woo Jin-young.
This is, I would argue, the biggest stain on the franchise's entire history. The allegations are that the finale we all saw on TV was actually the 3rd time they filmed it.
Okay, so for you listening at home, you might think, okay, so what? They had a technical glitch. They had to reset. What's the big deal? Okay, can you explain the physiology of why Take 3 is an absolute disaster in a competition like this?
It all comes down to your body's energy systems. In an event like an infinite rope pull, you are redlining your glycolytic system. You're burning through fuel and producing lactic acid or lactate at a massive rate.
That's the burn. Muscle burn.
That's the burn. Your muscles are screaming. Now imagine you're leading, like Jung Hae-min reportedly was. Reports say he had a massive lead in that first take. Your body is at its absolute limit. If you suddenly stop that event, that lactate just pools in your muscles. They stiffen up. It's what athletes call cooling down, but in a competition context, it's a death sentence for your performance.
So you can't just press pause and start over like a video game.
You absolutely cannot. Your body has depleted its immediate glycogen stores. You're essentially starting the second race with a half-empty gas tank and an engine that's full of sludge. And Jung Hae-min allegedly had to do this 3 times.
Wait, so walk me through the sequence of events, the 3 takes?
Okay, so take 1. Jung Hae-min has a huge lead. Then Woo Jin-young, the other competitor, claims there's a machine issue, a squeaking noise. So they stop the match, they check the machine, they apparently find no issue.
All right, that's already suspicious, but okay, technical difficulties can happen.
Right. So, take 2. They resume the match, and Jung Hae-min is leading again. He's pulling away, he is about to win, and then filming is halted again.
Why this time?
The official reason given was audio issues.
Audio issues in a rope pulling contest. Who cares about the audio? Just dub it in later.
That was the claim. So they stop it again, they reset for a 3rd take, they even move to a different location. By this point, Jung Hae-min has effectively run 2 max effort sprints. Woo Jin-young, who is trailing, has had multiple chances to recover. In take 3, which is the final result we all saw on TV, Woo Jin-young wins.
That is just, it's heartbreaking. It's not just unfair, it's physiologically rigged against the person who was leading.
It is. And Jung Hae-min later testified to these stoppages. Woo Jin-young denied requesting the stop, of course. The production team went into full damage control mode, but the rumor persisted. In Korea, people were comparing it to the 1988 Olympics boxing controversy.
Oh, wow. The Roy Jones Jr. fight in Seoul.
Exactly. That same feeling of a national theft. It speaks to a deep-seated cynicism. We want to believe that what we're watching is a meritocracy, that the strongest person won. But the reality might just be that the production schedule won, the perfect shot won.
And speaking of these crafted narratives, we also have to talk about the contestants themselves. The show pitches them as these honorable, almost stoic warriors. But the vetting process, it seems like it wasn't so perfect either.
Yeah, there were definitely some bad apples that slipped through. We had some pretty serious allegations against unnamed contestants regarding assault and threats against their partners. But the one that really blew up and rocked the Korean audience was the school bullying scandal involving Kim Dae-young.
She was the stunt woman, right? The very small, agile woman who was amazing at building the bridge in that one challenge.
Yes, she was a huge fan favorite because of her grit and determination. But then these allegations surfaced about her past. Now, for our international listeners, we really need to provide some context here. Bullying in the West often implies, name-calling or shoving someone in the hallway.
Like, give me your lunch money kind of stuff.
Right. But in Korea, hakpo, or school violence, is a much, much more severe social crime. You have to understand, the Korean education system is this high-pressure cooker where students are together for 12, sometimes 14 hours a day. The hierarchy is incredibly rigid. So bullying there is often systematic, it's violent, and it is unrelenting.
It sounds like the stuff of nightmares.
It is, and it's the central theme of that massive hit K-drama, The Glory. So public sensitivity to this issue was at an absolute all-time high when these allegations came out. It's become a kind of social justice movement where when someone becomes famous, their past victims often step forward and say, wait a minute, you tormented me back then. You don't get to be a hero on TV now.
It's a reckoning, a public reckoning.
It is. Now, Kim Dae-young admitted to verbal abuse, but she denied any physical violence. But in the court of public opinion, the damage was already done. It just shattered that illusion that physical excellence somehow equals moral excellence. We want to root for these people, but the reality is always messy.
It really complicates the picture.
Yeah.
And the show itself puts them in situations that just invite controversy. Which brings us, of course, to the gender dynamic.
Oh, yes. The great mixed gender experiment.
Yeah.
Physical. 100 prides itself on this, right? The tagline is, we don't care about gender, race, or age. It's just the physique.
That's the line. But is it actually true? Because when I watch a 200-pound man body slam a 120-pound woman into the mud, it doesn't feel like equality to me. It feels uncomfortable.
Well, let's look at the Park Hyung-in versus Chun-Ri incident. This was the moment that launched 1,000 think pieces.
It was so visceral. You have a male MMA fighter, Park Hyung-in, facing off against a female bodybuilder, Chun-Ri.
And to win the match, he uses a very common MMA technique called knee on belly. He pins her. He puts his knee directly on her chest to stabilize his position and control her.
And not just for a second. He held her there. And when the crowd, the other contestants watching, started murmuring and showing their disapproval, he looked up at them and did the zip your lips gesture.
That was the moment where it felt.
Yeah.
It felt dark. The crowd's reaction told you everything. Even in the supposedly no-rules fight, there was a cultural line that was being crossed in their eyes.
But here's the complexity, right? Jinri, the woman in the match, defended him. She came out afterward and said, "Look, I entered this as a competitor, not as a woman. This is a fight. He treated me like a professional."
And that is a completely valid defense. If you truly want equality in a combat sport, you don't pull your punches based on who is standing across from you. If he had gone easy on her, that would have been patronizing.
That's true. But the bigger structural issue remains. In the later rounds of the show, when it becomes all about moving massive weight or pure static strength, the women almost always get eliminated.
That's just a biological reality. Testosterone confers a massive advantage in bone density and muscle mass. So in raw strength tasks, the top percentile of men will almost always outperform the top percentile of women. It's just physics. So while the show claims to be gender blind, the tasks themselves are certainly not.
Which is exactly why the comparison to the show Siren, Survive the Island, is so important.
I think Siren is the more interesting and, frankly, the more progressive show.
I completely agree. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's an all-female survival show. But they're not just women. They are teams of professionals from male-dominated fields. You've got firefighters, soldiers, police officers, bodyguards.
Right, and because the physiological playing field is level, it's women against women, the whole dynamic of the competition shifts. It doesn't become a question of can she survive against the man. It becomes who is the better tactician, who has the better strategy.
The narrative shifts from biology to skill.
Exactly. When the firefighter team was defending their base in Siren, they weren't trying to outmuscle the soldier team. They used their professional training, they used fire hoses, they used ladders, they used breaching tools. It was brilliant.
It felt so much more respectful of their actual expertise.
And there's no male gaze. That's the other key difference. In physical 100, even with the best intentions, the camera sometimes lingers. The matchups often emphasize the size difference between men and women. In Siren, the producer, Lee So-yoon, was very clear about her goal. She wanted to show women fighting. Not female soldiers or policewomen, just professionals at the top of their game.
It just felt different. It felt like they were reclaiming the narrative of what a powerful female competitor looks like on screen.
Whereas Physical 100 is busy reclaiming a very different narrative, the narrative of Asian masculinity.
This is a huge, huge part of the cultural impact. We have to talk about how this show has fundamentally changed the way the world sees Asian men.
Historically, if you look at Western media over the last 50 or 60 years, Asian men have been systematically desexualized. They were the nerds, the awkward sidekicks, the long dongs from 16 Candles. They were portrayed as weak or effeminate or both.
Or just completely absent from any conversation about physical power or desirability.
Exactly. Then along comes Physical 100. And suddenly, your screen is filled with guys like Yoon Sung-bin taking off his shirt, or Chu Sung-hoon, a.k.a. Sexyama. You have these hyper-masculine, incredibly sculpted, confident Asian men.
And the internet just, it went wild.
It completely broke the internet. It was a thirst trap of global proportions. But it wasn't just K-pop fans or women watching, it was Western men, too. There was this palpable sense of both admiration and, frankly, jealousy. I want to look like that guy.
It challenged that model minority myth in a very visceral, physical way.
It did. It mirrors the rise of K-pop in some ways, but it adds this layer of raw, brute power. K-pop often gives you the polished, pretty, makeup-perfect aesthetic. Physical 100 gives you the sweat, the bulging veins, the grunt work. It's a powerful reclamation of masculinity.
And it sparked a huge fitness boom, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Muscle culture is becoming a major Korean cultural export now. You see it in the rise of Korean fitness influencers, the gyms popping up all over Seoul. Asian men are using this to reclaim that space, to say, we are not passive, we are powerful.
Which is incredibly empowering. But, and there's always a but with this deep dive.
There is always a but.
This intense focus on the perfect body, it has a very dark side.
A very dark side. And this is where we need to get serious and talk about the psychological costs. Because while we're all cheering for the six-packs and the biceps, we need to ask how they got there.
We saw the tweets. I saw people calling the show roids, 100.
The speculation was absolutely rampant. Viewers looked at these physiques, skin stretched tight, deltoids the size of cantaloupes, vascularity that looks like a road map, and they said, that cannot possibly be natural.
And legally, what's the deal? Steroids are banned in Korea without a prescription, right?
Yes. The KADIA, which is the Korea Anti-Doping Agency, has very strict rules for professional athletes. But reality TV, that falls into a massive gray area. There's no WADA official waiting by the urinal to take a sample before they walk onto the set.
So we're presenting these bodies as reality as a result of hard work and kimchi, but they might actually be the result of a very well-stocked pharmacy.
And that leads us directly to the clinical issue. We have a paper from Durji Park that dives deep into this. They talk about a condition called muscle dysmorphia.
Also known as bigorexia.
Correct. And it's classified as a subtype of body dysmorphic disorder.
Okay, so unpack that for us. What does that actually mean? Because I think a lot of people just hear that and think, oh, he's just a gym rat. He likes working out.
Yeah.
Where is the line between dedication and disorder?
The line is the distortion of perception and the disruption of daily life. It's an obsessive, all-consuming belief that you are not sufficiently muscular or lean, even when you are objectively very well developed. You could be the biggest guy in the room, literally 250 pounds of solid muscle, but when you look in the mirror, you see someone small. You see weakness.
It's like a reverse anorexia.
In many ways, yes. And the symptoms are behavioral. It's excessive weightlifting, often pushing yourself to the point of injury, which we literally see happening on the show. It's incredibly rigid dietary practices.
The guy who says, I can't eat that, it's not in my macros.
Exactly. And it leads to social withdrawal. You stop going out to dinner with friends because you can't control the ingredients in the food. You might skip your best friend's wedding because you don't want to miss a workout. You avoid swimming pools because, despite being more ripped than 99% of the population, you're deeply ashamed that you aren't ripped enough.
Now that sounds exhausting.
It is debilitating. And here is the direct connection. Shows like Survivor, and especially Physical, 100, glorify this obsession. They present these extreme bodies not just as aesthetically pleasing, but as necessary for survival and success. The underlying narrative is, if you want to win, if you want to be a survivor, you must look like this.
And for the viewer sitting at home on the couch.
It triggers something called social comparison theory. You inevitably compare your own body, your normal, functional, healthy body, to the perfect, often unattainable bodies you see on screen.
And you always come up short in that comparison.
Almost always, especially for young men. We talk a lot about body image issues for women, and rightfully so, it's a huge problem. But this show targets male insecurity directly. It reinforces that dangerous idea that muscles equal worth.
And if you don't have them, you're weak. You're the first one to be eliminated from the game.
Exactly. The show's casket process actively selects for this aesthetic muscularity. It creates an artificial standard that is statistically rare and, as we discussed, often chemically enhanced. But because it's labeled reality TV, our brains process it as real, and that validates the anxiety that can trigger or worsen the symptoms of dysmorphia.
So we're watching this global celebration of fitness, but for a vulnerable segment of the audience, it's basically pouring fuel on a mental health crisis.
It's a classic double-edged sword. On one side, it's a thrilling, inspiring celebration of human potential. It acts as a powerful corrective to historical biases against Asian men, and it's just damn fun to watch.
But on the other side,
it's a commercial product that risks the physical safety of its contestants, that obscures the truth of its own production, like with the rigging allegations, and that promotes a body image that can be profoundly psychologically damaging.
so what does this all mean for us as we look forward? We have Physical USA on the horizon. We have Physical Europe.
It means we are about to witness the globalization of this anxiety.
That is a heavy thought.
It is. As we sit down to watch Physical, USA or Physical, Italy, we have to ask ourselves a question. Are we watching a competition to find the most complete physique? Or are we witnessing the worldwide franchising of a new, unattainable anxiety about our own bodies?
The survivor isn't just the person left holding the rope at the end of the show.
No! The real survivor is the viewer at home trying to navigate these impossible standards in the real world without losing their mind.
Well, that's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? We're all playing the game, whether we sign the waiver or not.
Indeed we are. And I think it's worth going back to something you said earlier about the Avengers concept and the clash of sporting cultures, because the logistics of Physical Asia are just mind-boggling when you think about it.
It's not just flying people in and putting them in a hotel.
Not at all. It's about how you design challenges that are fair to a Muay Thai champion from Thailand, a judo master from Japan, and an oil wrestler from Turkey. The physics are completely different for each sport.
A kick isn't going to help you move a 2-ton ship.
No matter how hard you kick that ship, it is not moving an inch. And that's where the show, at its best, really does level the playing field. It forces these hyper-specialized athletes out of their comfort zones. It brutally exposes the difference between being in fighting shape and having raw, functional, manual labor strength.
Which again brings us back to the casting for the U.S. version. If they're produced by the American Ninja Warrior people and they want the fittest person in America, where do they even look? The NFL, the NBA.
Or do they just go straight to the CrossFit Games?
I feel like CrossFitters have a massive, almost unfair advantage in this specific format. Look at the track record. Season 1 winner, Woo Jin Young, a CrossFitter.
Yeah.
Season 2 winner, Amadi, another CrossFitter.
It is literally the sport of GPP, general physical preparedness. They train for the unknown and the unknowable. But I'm still fascinated to see if the U.S. version leans more heavily into those tactical athletes we talked about, the military guys.
The UDT guys were a huge presence in the Korean seasons.
Yes, and in Korea, they were respected for their mental toughness, their grit. They were seen as the shield of the nation. The American military narrative is often more about offense, shock and awe, dominance. It'll be fascinating to see how that archetype plays out against, say, a TikTok fitness influencer who just looks really good in flattering lighting.
That's the matchup I want to see. The Navy SEAL versus the Gymshark athlete.
And that connects directly back to the wholesome narrative. In Korea, there's this strong underlying Confucian current of respect. You bow to your senior. You bow to your opponent. Even when they were fighting tooth and nail in the mud, there was a code of conduct.
And you think that's going to survive the trip across the Pacific?
I am deeply skeptical. American reality TV thrives on conflict. It lives and dies by the villain edit.
It's all about the drama.
Exactly. If physical, 100 USA turns into the Challenger Survivor with all the alliances and the backstabbing and the trash talk, does it lose its very soul? A huge part of the appeal of the original was the purity of the effort. We were watching because we were in awe of how hard they were trying, not because they were yelling at each other in a confessional.
That's a great point, because the controversies we talked about, the rigging, the bullying, those were scandals precisely because they broke the audience's trust in that purity. If the show starts out cynical from the jump, maybe the audience won't care as much.
Or maybe they'll just expect it. But let's go deeper into that rigging scandal again, because the detail about the audio issues in the finale, it just keeps bugging me.
It's the dog ate my homework of television production excuses.
It is, and it implies that the visual spectacle, getting the perfect shot, was more important than the integrity of the sport they were filming. If this were the actual Olympics and the audio feed cut out, the runners would keep running. You don't stop the 100-meter dash because a microphone failed.
Right, unless you wanted a different outcome.
That's the dark implication. Jung Hae-min was a professional cyclist. His legs are essentially hydraulic presses. The rope pull event was all about lower body stability and muscular endurance. He was tailor-made for that event. Woo Jin Young was a CrossFitter, a great all-around athlete, but in a pure, grinding, endurance leg burner. The cyclist should win that 9 times out of 10.
So when they stopped the match.
When they stopped it, they broke Haemin's rhythm. But more importantly, as we discussed, that lactate buildup essentially froze his leg muscles. Any serious athlete knows that if you stop cold in the middle of a max effort endurance event, your muscles just seize up. Starting again isn't just hard, it's physically damaging.
So it wasn't just a pause, it was an active handicap.
It was a massive physiological disadvantage imposed directly on the leader of the competition. And that's why that comparison to the 1988 boxing controversy stings so much in Korea. It's that feeling that the fix was in from the start.
And yet, the show didn't get canceled. Netflix didn't pull the plug. They doubled down and created a global franchise.
Because the numbers don't lie. The controversy generated buzz. People argued about it online for weeks. And in today's attention economy, an argument is just as good as applause for the algorithm.
That is cynical, but probably true.
Okay,
let's pivot back to the gender dynamics for a second. We talked about Siren, which I agree is a masterpiece of the genre. But I want to dig into the psychological difference for the viewer watching women compete in Siren versus watching them in Physical 100.
In Physical 100, when a woman competes against a man, the narrative is almost always framed as, can she survive? It's presented as a David versus Goliath struggle by default.
Right. It's like, wow, look at her trying so hard.
It can be very patronizing, even when it's meant to be inspiring. Even when Jang Eun-sol, the wrestler from season 1, led her all-male team to a huge victory in the sandbag moving challenge, the edit was still framed as, wow, look at the underdog succeeding against the odds.
Whereas in Siren,
In Siren, the narrative is never about overcoming their gender, it's who is the better tactician. When the firefighter team was defending their base against the soldier team, the conversation was about strategy and teamwork and using their professional skills to dominate.
it validated their professions, not just their bodies.
That is the crucial distinction. Physical. 100 validates bodies. Siren validates skills.
I really like that distinction. Validates bodies versus validates skills. Because validating bodies leads us right back into that dysmorphia trap.
It absolutely does. Let's look at that social comparison theory again. This is a well-documented psychological phenomenon. We, as human beings, evaluate our own worth by comparing ourselves to other people.
And usually in the past, that meant comparing ourselves to our neighbors or our coworkers, a realistic local sample size.
Historically, yes.
Yeah.
You compared yourself to the blacksmith down the street. Maybe he was a bit stronger than you, but he was a real, flawed human being. Now, thanks to global media and social media, we compare ourselves to the absolute genetic elite who are also professionally lit, surgically dehydrated to show definition, and, in all likelihood, on a cocktail of performance-enhancing drugs.
It's a comparison you are set up to lose.
It's a rigged game, just like that rope pull. You're competing against an edited, curated, and enhanced version of reality. And the inevitable result for many people is a profound and persistent feeling of inadequacy.
And the Durji Park paper mentioned this isn't just about feeling bad when you look in the mirror. It affects your whole social life.
No, it's not just vanity. It bleeds into every aspect of your life. If you suffer from muscle dysmorphia, you might turn down a promotion at work because the new hours would interfere with your gym schedule. You might break up with a partner you love because they want to go out on dates that interfere with your twice-a-day cardio sessions.
It completely isolates you.
It creates a prison of your own making, and the bars of the prison are built out of dumbbells and meal prep containers. And the real tragedy is that society often applauds you for it. Wow, look at your dedication. Man, your discipline is amazing.
So you get positive reinforcement for the pathology.
Precisely. Unlike a disorder like anorexia, where extreme thinness often eventually elicits concern from family and friends, extreme muscularity almost always elicits praise. You look great, man. You're a beast. So the individual feels validated in their disorder, which makes it so much harder to recognize and to treat.
That is terrifying. It's a disorder that's hiding in plain sight, and it's disguised as the pinnacle of health.
And physical. 100 is the Super Bowl of that disguise. It takes these extreme behaviors, the obsessive training, the rigid dieting, pushing your body through paralysis, and it puts them on a global platform and gives them a massive cash prize.
It makes you look at the contestants in a totally different light. When I see someone on the show now with like 4% body fat, veins popping everywhere, screaming in agony, instead of thinking, what a hero, I'm starting to think, is that person okay?
And that is the empathetic, critical response. That's the response we need to cultivate in ourselves as viewers. We need to learn how to separate the entertainment spectacle from the human reality behind it.
It all comes back to media literacy, doesn't it?
It always does. We need to teach people how to watch these shows, how to deconstruct the edit, how to recognize the lighting tricks, how to understand that the reality we're being sold is a carefully crafted construct.
Maybe they should put a disclaimer at the start of every episode. Warning. Objects on screen are more dehydrated and psychologically tormented than they appear.
It probably wouldn't hurt.
So we have covered so much ground. From the sweaty gyms of Seoul to the global stage, the heroes, the villains, the victims. I want to end on a forward-looking note. You mentioned physical. World. Do you really think that's the end game? A literal Olympics of reality TV?
I think that's the ambition. Can you imagine a live global finale? Teams from every continent competing in real time, streaming simultaneously in 190 countries.
The logistics of that would be an absolute nightmare.
A nightmare, yes, but the payoff. In the fragmented streaming era, it would be the biggest television event since, I don't know, the moon landing. Okay, maybe not that big, but it would be the peak of this kind of programming.
And if they do it, I just hope they invest in some better audio equipment first.
Please. For Jung Hae-min's sake, if nothing else.
For everyone's sake.
Indeed.
Well, this has been quite a journey.
It has, and hopefully we've given everyone listening a new lens through which to see the show. Not just as mindless entertainment, but as a really powerful cultural artifact that tells us a lot about Who we are, what we value,
And what we fear.
and what we fear.
It's always a pleasure to pick your brain.
The pleasure is all mine.
And thank you, as always, to you for listening. Whether you're on a treadmill right now trying to build your own perfect physique, or you're sitting on the couch eating chips, and there is no judgment here.
Yeah.
We appreciate you diving deep with us. Keep questioning the narrative. Keep looking for the cracks in that perfect facade. And just remember, true strength isn't only about lifting the rock. It's also about knowing when it's time to put it down.
Beautifully put.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.